Carla, your online doctor, with today's Live in 5. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and it is 5 p.m. So, are you in your 40s or 50s, specifically women I'm talking to, and noticed you've gained a few pounds or maybe more than a few pounds, and you just can't lose it, right? Have you been told as well that you may be pre-diabetic? Like the last time you went to the doctor, your blood sugar was kind of a little higher than it should be, a fasting blood sugar. Okay, so they're high normal or just above normal, and the doctor says, don't worry, it's fine. Okay, did you know it is likely due to your hormones fluctuating as you start or you're in perimenopause or that menopause phase? Specifically, as your estrogen levels drop as you enter perimenopause or menopause. Progesterone is actually a glucose sparing hormone. It makes the body insulin resistant. Okay, so you're looking at a situation where not only are your hormones like that we know of, when we think of hormones, we think of progesterone and estrogen. We know they're changing, but your insulin is also changing, and that's a problem. Okay, so what tests should you be looking at if this describes you? First, you're looking at blood sugar. Okay, this is very likely the normal blood sugar levels they're probably a little too generous in most labs. You should have a glucose around 76 to 90, maybe 92 milligrams per deciliter. Anything over 90 as a fasting level is a warning sign, okay, that you have or you're developing insulin resistance. Now, levels 100 to 125 is considered pre-diabetic according to the American Diabetes Association. And over 125 fasting is diabetes. But in reality, over 100 fasting on 2 or more tests, repeated, like if you do one now and maybe one in a few weeks or a month, is diabetes without a label. Just letting you know. The other test that you need to get besides the fasting blood glucose is a hemoglobin A1C, which is not a routine test most doctors are going to order unless you tell them you have a family history of diabetes or you're concerned. But most of them are just going to say if your blood sugar is 90, 92, 94, 98, they're going to say, don't worry about it, watch your diet, and you're probably going to forget what they said and you're going to go about your routine and not make any changes. So hemoglobin A1C, though, is a marker of glycation or damage done to red blood cells' hemoglobin from elevated blood sugar on a continuous basis. Okay, it's like a sugar-coated hemoglobin, which is basically, it prevents the red blood cell from carrying oxygen molecules properly. So your hemoglobin A1C should be between 4.5 and 5.6%. That's like considered okay. Okay, that's a percentage of your total red blood cells. 5.7 to 6.4% is considered pre-diabetic, and over 6.4% is considered type 2 diabetes. Now, recommendations should be if you're pre-diabetic, or obviously if you're diabetic, but if you're pre-diabetic or in that just on the cusp right before those numbers, like if they're on the high end of normal, you should start making lifestyle changes right away. So if either your blood fasting glucose or your hemoglobin A1C are in that pre-diabetic range, or like I said, a high end of normal, then you need to make changes and you need to retest every 90 days to see if you're actually improving those numbers. And it's very important that you make these changes. So lastly, the test you need is a fasting insulin level. It's very important to know this level during menopause and perimenopause. As hormone levels decline, your insulin levels rise, which leads to weight gain around the midsection, usually in most women, and can also elevate cortisol levels too, which actually worsens the situation. Okay, lab ranges are usually used to detect insulinomas when you're dealing with a fasting insulin level, because your doctor will look at you and go, like, why do you want that? Those are tumors on the pancreas, and I can say, you don't have that. But what we're looking for are your functional levels of insulin. So a fasting insulin should be between 2 and 6 And a post-meal insulin should be below 30, roughly 15 to 30. But the fasting one is really the better measure. So if your fasting levels are over 6, it tells us you're insulin resistant, meaning your body is putting out more insulin to get the job done. Okay, so it has to crank up that insulin in hopes of keeping your blood sugar levels in the normal range. You do not want that. The problem with increased insulin is it causes increased fat storage and inflammation in the body, particularly the cardiovascular system. It also leads to poor circulation, hypertension, dementia, Alzheimer's, as well as type 2 diabetes, of course, and polycystic ovaries. If you're in a younger category, potentially that could be your reasoning. So one of the tests that you want to look for, it's actually a calculation. I had to look it up. I'd never heard of it before. It's called a HOMA-IR, HOMA-IR. It's a standard way of measuring insulin in research. And it basically requires a fasting insulin and a fasting glucose. So it's 2 blood tests. You go on, you can type in HOMA-IR calculation, and you can type it in and put in your numbers. It will give you the conversion if, depending on the units that your lab uses for those 2 tests. You want to have a result that should be less than 1. If it's greater than 1.9, you have insulin resistance, and greater than 2.9, you have significant insulin resistance. And life needs to be changed. You need to make some changes. So I want to continue talking about this, but we're going to follow up on Thursday because there's a lot more information. And this, it doesn't only affect women in perimenopause and menopause, but it's a factor in this age group that is often overlooked, okay, because they're so busy focusing on progesterone and estrogen that they fail to look at this as a contributing factor. So I want you guys to do your homework and get those tests done and see where you're at, and then we can talk about how you make changes and, again, what you can do moving forward, especially natural things. Okay, that's what we're trying to do, is make improvements in a natural way. So on that note, I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you again on Thursday for another Live in 5.